You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast produced by Veteran Strategies and featuring conversations with fascinating and impactful men and women who have shaped our world, our communities, and our history. My name is Robert Vane, Principal of Veteran Strategies, and your host for our discussion. You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise, and sponsored by Garmon Construction, Leaders and Legends LLC, the Grand Hall and Conference Center at Historic Union Station, the McGinley's Golden Ace Inn, and NFP, a national insurance broker with strong local content. Our podcast is featured on the All Indiana Podcast Network in partnership with Wish TV. You may find Leaders and Legends at allindianapodcastnetwork.com. Thinking of starting a podcast or need to host a public meeting? Let Leaders and Legends LLC be your partner as you look for new ways to communicate your message. Please contact Chris Spangle or me at leadersandlegends.net. And as always, all our podcast interviews are dedicated to the legacy and generosity of P.E. McAllister. Thank you for joining us on the Leaders and Legends podcast. Our guest today is the mayor of the city of Carmel, and it's not Carmel.
Nope.
Mayor Sue Finkam. She, I'm going to say, burst on the scene, but that's not true if you knew her, because you always knew how much energy she had, how many ideas she had, and how much she loved Carmel. But she beat the boys, not once, but twice. She's going to talk a little tiny bit of politics today, but most of it's going to be an examination of her love and vision for Carmel and her background. Mayor, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun today.
I promise that we won't treat you like I would treat like a Chris Jensen.
I would hope not.
Or a Greg Ballard or John Stair, who's come on the podcast. Those people who are all magnificent.
They are.
Let's start just very quickly about Carmel, and then we'll move backwards and then leap forward. Running for mayor, that is not a decision that anyone takes lightly. What made you think that your vision for Carmel, your leadership for Carmel, was what the city needed?
First, I was blessed to work with Mayor Brainerd for 12 years as a city councilor, or 11 therein, before I announced for mayor. And so really I had great opportunity to learn and to really see his vision in action. And as a city councilor for 12 years, got to listen to our constituents, explain why they chose to live here and why they stay and what they find of value here. So I think my vision was forged by Mayor Brainerd's and also our amazing community. But I felt like after Mayor Brainerd had been in office for 28 years, you wanted someone who's going to continue the vision for the most part because it was highly successful. Mm-hmm. He put the Carmel on the map both nationally and internationally, and would also take maybe a close look at some things business-wise, because what I had said during the campaign was what got us here today won't get us there tomorrow. The business and economic conditions are different. Our city is different. Change is swirling all around us. Now the conversation about Carmel is much more national in scope than it ever was before. So I felt like my background in business and in healthcare and consulting and in city leadership could mold itself into something that, as I said during the campaign, could keep Carmel special. And maybe I just have just enough bravado to think I could do it too.
Sure. We saw this recently with the presidential race where Vice President Kamala Harris was asked, what would you do different than President Biden? And she said nothing, which proved to be perhaps not the most constructive or beneficial answer. You weren't a part of Mayor Brainerd's administration. You were in the council.
Correct.
But how did you answer that question? Why would you do anything different?
I answered that question by producing a 57-point document that said, this is our Elevate Carmel plan, and these are the things I'm going to focus on. I felt like that our residents are super smart and super engaged in this community, and they didn't want to hear platitudes. They wanted to see action items, and so that's what I delivered. I just said I wanted to be more transparent, more engaged, set us on a long-term path for fiscal sustainability, and above all else, world-class public safety. And there are some things I felt like we could do better in all of those areas. And so I detailed those in that plan. And when people want to engage, we got much into the weeds as they wanted. But otherwise, we just really talked about what we could do to make sure that we were one of the best run cities in the country. It's nerdy. It's not exciting. It's not sexy.
How do you convince people or persuade people that in such a magnificent city and community, more needs to be done?
It's interesting you say that because people say, I'm living in a dream world, right? There's everything here. It's perfect. But the reality is, without a lot of hard work, a lot of those things that people enjoy are going to go away. One, we're seeing increased crime everywhere, and so we have to be diligent on that aspect. We also have a much more international community than we ever had before. 110 languages from 90 countries here in Carmel, 16% foreign-born. And to make sure that everyone who's moving here for medicine and law and education and tech also feel a part of this community, we have to have an intentional strategy around that. But there's just so much that we need to stay on top of as far as how people are changing, how they want to interact with each other. Our Parks Department does a magnificent job of this. And I think it's just really keeping your finger on the pulse of everything to make sure, because if you're not changing and listening and growing, you're going to go backwards. And I think that's just part of being agile in a community that's going to make it successful.
You mentioned public safety. I spent 2 years as Deputy Chief of Staff and Communications Director for the wonderful Greg Ballard.
He is wonderful.
And so much of what we did from public safety was there was public safety and there was crime, and public safety was strategic and crime was tactical. We would have these big announcements we'd want to do, and then there'd be a shootings, or so we couldn't do it. So our public safety, he said public safety is job one, and he never wavered from that. If I said Carmel has these public safety problems, if I said that down in Indianapolis, they'd be like, somebody used the wrong fork. Like, how do you say, no, you don't understand. What's happening in Indianapolis and other places is being pushed out, and we have to address it now.
And we see our crime statistics increasing. But I think that we did a survey recently of 7,200 respondents, which is crazy good for us. And the number one word they use to describe why they move here and why they stay here was safety. It's a safe community. Now, I will also add to that, police and fire are the main drivers of that. But so is our streets department, who's making sure there's potholes filled immediately. And so is our engineering department, who makes sure we have a walkable community that people feel safe walking in, and safe streets are designed. So it takes everybody to say we have a safe community. I just recently met with a homeowners association with our chief of police. This is an area that's relatively affluent, and have had 5 break-ins in 3 years. And those folks feel insecure about their future, uncertain about their safety, and look in their eyes because they're worried about their children, their dog, their pets. They're not really worried about what's happening in Indianapolis. That's our job, to make sure our residents feel that their community is safe. I don't think we can compare our city to anyone else as it comes to crime, except that we have a responsibility, and we're going to make sure that everyone feels that this is their community living forever.
I'm laughing to myself because I'm parked outside City Hall, and I had some stuff in my hand, and I started to put my stuff down so that I could use my key fob to lock my car. And I literally went, "It's Carmel." So my car is unlocked with whatever in it. I didn't even give it a second thought. Now, that's the kind of branding that you can't buy.
Right.
How important is it to you? You just articulated a little bit of it. But to keep that, you want to live in a nice community and feel safe, but also you're a business and you want to relocate and feel safe. How do you balance keeping public safety top of mind while at the same time having a sort of secondary presence other than writing speeding tickets, which I know the Carmel police are wonderful at because I keep hearing, "Don't speed, you'll get a ticket." But to increase public safety or to make people feel more safe, sometimes you have to increase police presence, which I would guess would be anathema to what Carmel's about.
I think I heard a wonderful police officer describe today that the first time you meet a police officer in Carmel, we don't want it to be on your worst day. or when you're getting a speeding ticket. We really want it to be when you are at a public event, you get to engage with our officers, or one of the 16,000 kids are in our school system gets to see a school resource officer every day. We want our community to engage with our officers on good days and understand that they're here to serve them and they're here to educate them and to keep them safe. And so it starts with hiring really good people. And that's what I'm doubling down on, is making sure we have the budget to hire and retain the best of the best, who don't just put the uniform on to get through the day, but put their uniform on to teach and serve others. And I am proud to say that that is what our police and fire departments and frankly the rest of the city of Carmel employees do every day. They really come to work every day to serve. But also we have funds for them to train and train often and have the best equipment. And our community is incredible. I've gotten nearly $500,000 of personal donations this year from residents who bought battalion helmets and, ballistic helmets and rifle plates and other safety equipment for our officers and fire officers to keep them safe at the end of the day. That's an incredible commitment from our community, and I love that.
You're listening to the Leaders and Legends podcast. Our guest is the Mayor of Carmel, Sue Finkam. We start off the podcast with maybe a little bit of politics, so let me go back there for a second. 3 Republicans ran in the primary in 2023. You, Fred Glenn, Kevin Ryder.
Yep.
I was on Indiana Week in Review one time as a Republican. And I remember Ann Delaney saying, this was like 10 years ago, one skirt will beat 2 pairs of pants any day. It's exactly what she said, or something like that. How special was it for you to go up against 2 experienced men, politicians, public servants, and think, you know what, I've got a shot and I'm going to make history? The mentality of candidates is fascinating to me, because the easiest thing in the world is to say, no, I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to volunteer at the school. I'm not putting my name out there. But you did, and you won. Would you characterize your victory right now, sitting here today, as an upset?
It's funny you ask that. If you ask Corey Wood, my campaign consultant, he would say yes, and I would say no. We certainly faced an uphill battle in that Kevin Ryder had done a fantastic job and raised over $500,000 in campaign funds before the campaign even really started. And so that made me an underdog for sure. But I felt like my business experience was more aligned with what this office needed. And I'd had 12 years of experience. Kevin had 16 in city council. So I felt like I was every as capable of serving in this role as he was. So that's where I get a little bit, maybe the hair up on the back of my neck and say, no, I was not an underdog. But certainly Fred and Kevin care about this community as well, and we're worthy opponents.
When you got word that your predecessor had endorsed in the primary, speaking of your hair standing up,
I was irritated, was probably the best word, because we thought he was going to stay out of it. But at the same time, I think some people were having a hard time differentiating Kevin and I, because we were both on city council for a long period of time. And that put a wedge between us for sure for some. But everyone needs every candidate needs a little bit of juice to keep them going through campaigns at different points of the campaign. And that helped further fuel the fire that was inside to work hard each and every day on this campaign.
When did you think, we're all superstitious in politics, right? Never just assume. When were you most confident that you were going to win the primary in 2023? When you were giving your victory speech? Or a week or so before? When?
No, actually, I didn't take anything for granted. The whole sports thing, always run like you're behind. So I think we did a really good job of doing that. I think I knew from the primary perspective, I don't think I knew until the very end. There was a clear point when I knew in the general, but Chris Jensen, who we spoke of earlier, they hadn't called the race yet, and I hadn't heard from either of my opponents. And I think Chris was watching a different channel or something. And he called yelling into the phone, "Oh my God, you did it." And I think that was like at that moment, I actually broke character and got giddy for just a second. And then got back into character and said, "Oh my gosh, now what do I do? I have to give a speech." So that was clearly the moment. It was just such a whirlwind. And that evening was just so fun. It was fun because I went into the evening into the war room, so to speak, with a bottle of Lady Gaga Dom Perignon and a couple extra shirts in case I had to change clothes for a victory speech. But I really went into it like I could not have done more. I could absolutely not have done more, except for maybe a day here, a day there when I was exhausted and needed a couple hours. But I could not have done more. And I was bound to determine we were going to celebrate the effort no matter what the outcome was. And I think that's really important because I think both in business and in life, sometimes we're so focused on a perceived outcome that we want that sometimes we just don't celebrate the fact that we put a plan together and worked really hard and did everything we could. I did so many meet and greets. And I think those are really important. And even though I got so tired of hearing myself speak, but that night was fun for that reason because I just thought we did everything we could and it had a positive outcome. It was also super fun on a personal note. I had my husband and my son on the stage. My son is now just 22. And so I think he was 9 when I went first on council. And he had a couple times where he helped me knock a couple doors or made a couple calls along the campaign trail. But for the most part, I tried to keep him away from that, let him just be a kid. And so I think we're standing on stage and people are literally chanting my name, which is so awkward and weird. But to look at him, I think he realized that this is important to my mom. It's important to our family. It's important to the community. And I think he had a different perspective of the office. And I love sharing that moment with him.
This question is not to imprint something that you think, but what a lot of people think. And that was the November election in which you won and was elected mayor, in some ways anticlimactic.
If those are all the Democrats who are really disappointed that there wasn't a big blue wave that came over Carmel, I've got lots of motivational things in my phone about all the news articles that were said that this is the time, this is what's going to happen, whatever. So if that's what you're referring to, I'm happy.
Well, Sue Finkam defeated Miles Nelson in the November election of 2023 by 14.4 percentage points. And as the mayor just alluded, there was no shortage of assertions and stories that Carmel's turning blue, or at least it's purple. And a lot of what people cited as the reason for that was that in 2020, Joe Biden won the city of Carmel and Donald Trump won the county of Hamilton, won Hamilton County. So, did you ever buy the assertion that Carmel's turning blue?
So it depends on how you want to define turning blue. I think our demographics have clearly changed. It's not a 70-30 city anymore like it might have been 20 years ago. And we've got a lot of people moving from predominantly Democratic states, Illinois, California, to come here because of our great quality of living, our low cost of living as well. And clearly you look at the most recent election statistics and there's more Democrats voting. However, as a local elected official, I'm a firm believer, like I govern every day. I don't care who lives here.
And it's not like Jim Brainerd's Ted Cruz.
Exactly.
I mean, I used to call Greg Ballard, I used to pitch him to reporters as an urban Republican. There's a strain of conservatism, republicanism that fits governing a city just perfect. Yeah. And I think that you would agree Mayor Brainerd was like that guy. Yeah. So to the extent maybe philosophically, Carmel was never deep red, even though it voted Republican.
Yeah. I feel like every day we don't screen people and say, are you D or an R and do you need medical care, right? Or a pothole filled. I don't care how they vote, what they believe in. They're just part of our community. And together we need to create an amazing opportunity for anyone who moves here. And the whole fact you're partisan is challenging, right? I think for a local elected official, these stories coming out about this is turning blue. I just firmly believe they wanted the best candidate to look out for their pocketbook, to make sure that the government is transparent and the government is providing the amenities that allow them to make family memories, no matter who they are and what they believe. So it was frustrating when we had this national narrative coming in that We were targeted as a city in a county across the country where the mayor seat could flip. Because I felt like Mayor Brainerd had led with distinction for the 28 years he was in office. And here comes someone who's been on city council for 12 years behind him. So why would we want to take a radical change to someone unproven?
Does campaigning energize you? Because it can get a tad dark. Even in a place like Carmel, where you're basically trying to say, I'm going to take this success and make it more successful. You put your entire life on the line, your life's history. And sometimes you have to take stands or broadcast commercials that cause people to be angry with you. How did you navigate that? I want to win. I'll do what it takes, but I don't want there to be lasting scars, which then hurt me while I'm trying to connect as mayor to the people of Carmel.
It is definitely challenging. It's definitely soul sucking. But I would say I'm highly competitive. There's not an hour goes by that I have a win-loss clock in my head all the time. Won that conversation, lost that conversation. Did a good job here, really screwed that up. It's constant in my head. So campaigning, I think I'm built, if there is a style, built for campaigning and such that I'm constantly reassessing my ability to deliver a message. I'm constantly asking if I serve that person the right way at the right time. So in that respect, I think I like it. I get energy from it. It's just like going back and forth on a basketball court, right? You're on offense, you're on defense, you're on offense, and you're on defense. However, it is hard. And there was one time I called my son. I'm like, look, there's some nasty stuff out there about your mom that's completely untrue. Do not weigh in on Instagram. Do not play along. And so I think it's hurtful sometimes. There was twice during the campaign that I think once I was near tears, the other time I was in tears. And sometimes it's fatigue. Sometimes, again, this is unfair, but you just got to plow on. One of my favorite books is Relentless, written about Michael Jordan from his trainer, long-term trainer. And I'm not going to lie, that book got me through the campaign a little bit. I listen on audible.com to most of my books now just because if I try to read, I fall asleep. But that book just talks about how relentless Jordan was in his years, and not always the nicest individual, it sounds like, but really just how committed to his craft and committed to winning he was. And there's a couple chapters that I put on autoplay. You just got to grit and get through it and put on your battle armor and go. And that's how I got through it. And thank God for people like we said earlier, Mark Warner and Corey Wood and Laura Campbell, who was one of my campaign co-chairs, that just kept me in the game. Or in the match, it's the guy in the corner pushing you back out, right? After they wipe the blood off. So they all just talked me through it. It was good. And I'm appreciative.
You served on the council. Now you're the executive. There is a tradition of saying this person has a legislative mentality or this person has an executive mentality. Do you buy into that categorization? And does part of you go, you know what? Yeah, I've got a legislative mind because I was there for 12 years and I need to work collaboratively. And this is what I'm going to do as mayor.
I don't think I ever categorize myself or others like that.
We heard a lot with Mike Pence when he was governor that he really should be in the legislature or Congress. That was a criticism of his. Or inversely, Mitch Daniels in the Senate. How is he going to handle his Senate colleagues? He's going to be 10 times smarter than all of them. He's more of an executive sort of thinker.
I'm more of an executive, I think, because I'm more of a doer and get her done kind of person. And I want to see the outcomes and move on. But clearly, sometimes I think as a city councilor, you do have to think legislatively. What's our policy on this? What's our policy on that? But I'm blessed with a really good council now. 6 are new, relatively. And it is weird being the other side of that. Mm-hmm. I have a deep respect for what they do, how they serve their constituents, that they're trying to balance maybe what we're trying to do as a city, but also what a constituent is saying that may differ from that, maybe path forward. And we have very unique individuals in that there isn't groupthink in this council. They all have a different identity and desire to serve in a different way, and I respect that and I appreciate that. One of my learnings from this year is I've met with them all monthly, but I have not overlorded at all. And because I deeply respect what they do, I think in 2025 I want to serve a little bit closer with them, connect a little bit more on projects and stuff, just to make sure we're more aligned. I think that'll be helpful.
You talked about your relationship with the city county council, but it's just not the council. There are other bodies that help you govern per se, or that show a great interest in Carmel. One of them is the State House.
Yep.
And you endorsed one of the best people I've ever met, and that's Mr. Danny Lopez.
I did.
He was a guest of the Leaders and Legends podcast a couple of months ago. Terrific guy for more reasons than I can think of at the moment. When you talk about leadership, the next generation, what we need, ideas, values, what particularly made you step in for Danny?
His professionalism, his experience, but his humanity as well. All those combined just made him an outstanding candidate. I told him a few years ago when he was thinking about running, is that whenever he wants to run, I would be behind him. And I just feel like he is going to be he will listen to what our needs are in Carmel, work really hard to try to get those needs parlayed in the State House, hopefully. And I frankly think he's going to rise in leadership quickly. And again, I just know he's human first, right? A family man, strong business leader, but he's human first, and he's going to be the right kind of leader. And I was really proud to put my name behind his.
You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise, and sponsored by Carmel Construction, Leaders and Legends LLC, the Grand Hall and Conference Center at Historic Union Station, and the McGinley's Golden Ace Inn on the Deer East Side of Indianapolis. Our guest today, Mayor Sue Finkam, City of Carmel. Mayor, is there a Hoosier leader and or legend you particularly admire?
Huge fan of Mitch Daniels. He's the one that I watched, this business guy, right, going to government, make an amazing difference. And then I remember meeting him in 2009, I think, at a fundraiser at Tom Wheeler's house in Zionsville. And again, I had like the 30 seconds handshake line with him. And I remember saying, I think I want to run for office as a business person because you inspire me. He said, you should. So I did. But he took on hard issues, complex issues, and transformational issues. I just admire that so much.
He famously said to ask for forgiveness, not permission. Is that a motto here in the town hall of Carmel?
It's not really a motto.
City hall, I should say.
Yeah, City Hall. Thank you. It's not really a motto, but yeah, I would like to forge ahead. And I feel like also since I ran on a plan of 57 points that I can just go full out on those 57 without asking for permission because I already did.
You didn't get lost in Tom Wheeler's house, right? I just want to make sure. It's not exactly a shack. For governing, do you remember the first time that you mentioned a few minutes ago that you don't lord over people, right? But do you remember the first time you said, I'm the mayor, and you didn't say I'm the mayor, but you said you wanted something done and you were the mayor and expected it to be done. Hey, this needs to be fixed, and let me know when it's fixed.
It's a little bit of a transition coming into this role, especially when you're in business, because you're used to collaborating and committees and whatever. And I still hope to collaborate. But there's been a couple instances this year where I had to make hard calls, and it's never comfortable. You hope you can convince somebody to do something without telling them or making a decision for them. So yeah, I remember a couple of them. I don't think we need to get into the details, but yeah, it's like challenging for sure. And I don't think you want to just have a power-based leadership style either. It's not going to get you where you want to be in the long term. I think the hardest thing for me going from business into city council is that first vote. Because it can be the easiest vote ever, but you feel naked. Like you feel like, oh my God, I've got to press this button, either red or green.
And everyone's going to know.
And everyone's going to know. And I don't even remember. I should go back and look at my first vote was. It was probably something like a speed limit or whatever. But it's just really hard. It's really uncomfortable. But also, it's such an honor. This community is amazing. And the fact that I would say we have, game changers and world leaders here. And to know that they put their faith behind me to help lead this amazing community is something I never take for granted.
Do you ever feel like you have to, or perhaps people expect you to, apologize for Carmel's success and wealth?
I think sometimes people feel like we have everything and why in the world would we ever ask for more? But we do have, as we talked earlier, real crime issues. We have crimes against persons. We have obviously burglaries and break-ins. We have families in need and distress here. We have businesses who are just barely making it. If we shut a road down right in front of them, that'd be their mortgage on the line. Mm-hmm. So we have real issues like any other community does. It's all a matter of scale. But I was just speaking to a group, and I'm like, how many of you think we're just old, rich, and white? And pretty much every hand in the group went up. One, we have some education to do about who we are now. What's today's Carmel? It's not your grandpa's Carmel. And also what our needs are. And I've spent a lot of time in the last 8 months meeting with state legislators. You mentioned the state house earlier. Going around to their communities and meeting them down in Indy or getting them here and saying, hi, I'm Sue. I'm the new mayor of Carmel. And this is where Carmel's at today. And this is what we're trying to do long term. And I would really like to work with you as a partner during this next state legislative session, the next General Assembly, to make sure that we can have an open, honest, transparent conversation about what you're fighting down there and what I need here. And I've really enjoyed those conversations. In my previous life, I was governmental affairs chair for the Indiana Athletic Trainers Association a couple times and have advocated for nonprofits like Indiana Donor Network. So being at the State House is not uncomfortable for me, but certainly a different role wearing this hat when we're seen as not in need of anything. One of our State House leaders said, Carmel, you got everything you need, right? So we had a long conversation about all the things that I think we can still benefit from legislative changes.
I've known several people who've grown up here, for lack of a better term, or went to high school at Carmel, whatever. And you ask them, like, where are you from? And they're almost a tad bit sheepish. Like, oh, Carmel. Like, now don't judge me. Don't make fun of me for being rich. I always thought that was interesting as a kid who grew up on the east side of Indianapolis. Is it fun? Is it good to have success problems?
It's better than the alternative, Robert. It's better than the alternative. Again, we've got so many people that live here that lead incredible organizations. Like Mung Chang from Purdue still has a home here. The last 2 governors live here. We have a lot of entrepreneurs who live here who are responsible for a lot of people, and therefore they've chosen a community where their employees can thrive or their family can thrive. And I take that responsibility very seriously. And that, if anything, the challenge for a leader here is that we have such knowledge here, such experts here. There's no shortage of opinions and advice that we're given. I welcome it all. That's why we want a community engagement platform. I think, if anything, that's challenging because we have experts that sometimes don't see the same viewpoint.
Sure. Is it cool to tell people you're the mayor of Carmel? Tell other mayors, other governors when you go to National League of Cities or U.S. Conference of Mayors or whatever, and for them to react the way that I'm guessing they react. And Carmel has such a reputation that's 99.9% positive. Yep. Is it fun when you say, yeah, I'm the mayor of Carmel, Indiana, and their reaction is, oh.
Heck yeah, I'm so proud. I'm like the biggest cheerleader. And if they don't know Carmel, then I'm going to list about 1,000 things of what they should know about Carmel, why they should be impressed by what we have here. By what we have here, meaning the community we've been able to develop. The transportation network with the roundabouts is amazing. The built environment where people can create new relationships every single day on the Monon just by walking their dog and saying hi to someone else walking their dog. Again, the incredible environment that our city employees provide. Yeah, I go on and on about it if they're not familiar. The funny thing is when I'm with mayors in Indiana or other legislators in Indiana, what almost always comes out of their mouth is, we don't want to be Carmel, but
why don't they want to be Carmel?
Yeah, it's hands down. We don't want to be Carmel, but we just did our own performing arts center, or we just developed a walking path, or we just did this incredible, our first mixed use development, like 4 stories over 5 with retail on the bottom. Mm-hmm. And everyone should want to have their own identity that matches the needs of their community. But if we can lead the way with the resources that we have and lift Indiana, that's a cool thing, and that's what we should be doing. And so I want to make sure that anyone who's trying to do something new for their community that we've done here, we should open our arms and welcome them here so we can show them what's been successful.
Mayor Bauer would always say that the fact that he had kids who were in their early 20s was part of helped him philosophize. Is that the right word? What he thought Indianapolis should be. In other words, they would say, I don't want to live X because they don't have Y and Z. I want bike lanes. I want mass transit. I want a lot of these things. And he took that, he brought that to the mayor's office because I got 2 college educated kids. They went to Brebeuf. They're going to be successful. That's who we need here. I tell people all the time, you're bitching about property taxes. Indianapolis doesn't have a property tax problem. It has an income tax problem. And I always would tell reporters, don't underestimate how much traveling around the world, living around the world as a Marine officer has informed Mayor Ballard's governance of this city. Because he saw things just everywhere and was like, wow, why don't we? We could do that. And so that's what I was saying.
I think it also benefited Mayor Brainerd as well. That's where the idea for the roundabouts came from, him visiting overseas. He saw the European square and the value of it and the value of a third place. Mm-hmm. And it absolutely influenced the built environment here as well. Mm-hmm. I had a great experience in SKL, class 33, and as everyone always says, best class ever. And that was, I believe, 2009-10. Mm-hmm. And the former mayor, Bart Peterson, was our moderator, which was fantastic for me at the time because I was contemplating running for city council.
He was a terrific mayor.
And he brought in, I think this was, 2 years after he
lost in 7.
Lost. So who did he bring in as a speaker? Greg Ballard. So first of all, I thought it was incredibly classy for him to bring in the mayor that he had lost to speak to our class. And one of the things that my class asked is, Mayor Ballard, if there's one thing that you could do to transform the city, what would it be? And he said, bike lanes. And my class kind of mocked him afterwards. I don't know if I've told him this. I should tell him.
You should definitely tell him. He loves his reputation as a self-proclaimed visionary.
Yes. But bike lanes is one of those things, if you build it, they will come. It also brings a younger demographic who's more active and obviously is going to be the future of your community. And so that was a really, for me, an inkling into, if you're going to be a leader of a community, be thinking about, like Wayne Gretzky said, where's the puck going to be at? Where's it at? And I thought that was a wonderful opportunity to really learn more about the built environment, which I was also watching James Brainerd do here in Carmel. So kudos to Mayor Ballard for answering that honestly, and also taking a little bit of the arrows from it as well, which I know he did in the media as well over time.
He did. But he's, as he likes to say, the Democrats spent $10 million and they're 0 for 2. Hamilton County and the surrounding counties, and the suburbs especially, have a cadre of terrific mayors.
Yes.
John Stair, who's been on the podcast, is a new mayor of Zionsville. And we have Chris Jensen, the best-dressed mayor of, or maybe it's the best-dressed mayor in Noblesville.
Did you say best?
Best dressed. If you can't get along with Chris Jensen, you need to look in the mirror. Super guy, wonderful family. And obviously, Scott Fadness and Fishers, who's not been on the podcast, who we should get.
And Scott Willis in Westfield as well.
Yeah, I don't know Mr. Westfield.
We have him on the podcast
Mr.
too.
Willis. Forgive me. I guess he is Mr. Westfield, isn't he? So how much do you... It's like sports. They say the NFL is a copycat league. I like to say politics is a copycat league. How much do you go, what are they doing over there? Great idea, Chris. How fun is it to be young, bounce ideas off each other about, hey, look, we're all in these amazing cities. People are coming here. How do we keep them coming here? I would imagine there's either a big C or a small C competition among you. But how fun is it to have this group of mayors who you get along with and have fun with?
It's super fun. And I was also put Keegan Schmicker up in Tipton in that mix as well, and Tyler Moore in Kokomo. Scott Fadness and Chris Jensen have been fantastic for me as a new mayor. Even though I was on city council for 12 years and came in with a pretty good knowledge base of what this job might be like, there's some just challenging days, and they've been so good about saying, just call any of my staff. We'll help you in any way we can. So that's so meaningful because it's people over politics in that particular case. But there's a little bit of competition, right? A little friendly competition. I heard from Scott Willis when their Westfield team beat our Carmel team. And I may have, at some point in my career, texted Chris Jensen the look of a roundabout in Noblesville compared to the look of the world's most beautiful roundabout in Carmel. But for the most part, if something happened in our community of dire circumstances, those guys would be here for us in a heartbeat. Not for me as a person, for us as a community. And that means more than anything. But we do bounce other ideas off of each other. And we also share challenges with each other when someone's attacking Hamilton County or something like that. So it's really nice.
Do you ever wonder what it would be like to be mayor of the city to your south?
I have wondered that just because their challenges are so different. And I think it's easy to criticize public safety and other things. But then you got to wonder, what would I do in those same circumstances with those same resources in this day and age? So I have wondered that, not because I want to do it, just about from an empathy standpoint.
Sure.
How hard is that down there? And also how wonderful, because Indianapolis is a fantastic community. When you see what they did with USA Swimming, Indianapolis Motor Speedway successfully pulled off year in and year out. What a smooth operation that is. It'd also be super fun too. But I've wondered just from the more pondering, not because I'm dreaming, anything like that.
Well, there's something you mentioned a few minutes ago with other mayors. I think there's a reluctance among those of us who have worked in the mayor's office to be critical of subsequent mayor staff or mayors because you were there. I don't recall Mayor Ballard beat Mayor Peterson in a colossal upset. There's no other way around it. And Bart Peterson was a terrific mayor who had a pretty rough 6 to 7 months. And I don't really recall many members of the Peterson administration, even though they went out like that, for lack of a better term, being critical publicly of us. And I've had chances to be critical of Hogshead. And when the media wants to talk to Mayor Ballard, they usually call me, and then we figure it out. And I could tell you, Mayor Ballard does not want to be critical. He knows what's going on up there. Is that something that you feel maybe with Mayor Brainerd? I don't know, he was mayor for so long, but other mayors as well. As I know, Sue, I know what you're dealing with, and I keep my mouth shut. You need something, let me know.
Absolutely. I watch what happens in other communities around the country, and sometimes we'll text the mayor and say just a small note of, hang in there. We're all thinking of you, praying for you. It's just I've changed my answer on something over this year. The answer I get all the time is, what has surprised you as a new mayor? I used to say the number one thing that surprised me is all the little girls in the 4th through 8th grade who are just thrilled to have a female mayor. Shame on me, I didn't see that coming. I figured like the generation before me and maybe the generation behind me have fought that battle but these little girls are like jazzed up about a female mayor, and I love it. And I've tried to really focus on youth in general, but also this 4th through 8th grade group. Our mayor for a day today was our first one ever, and it's a 7th grade young lady named Maya. That was a great way to spend a morning. I've changed that answer though, because I think over time, maybe it's getting the honeymoon period off or something, or changing from campaign mode to governing mode a little more. But I think what surprises me most is that there's always this low level of anxiety all the time, which is like when I hear the sirens, like what's happening? When I wake up and look at my phone for the first time in the morning, what am I going to see? There's just this little bit of anxiety there, just because the responsibility is so big. I don't want anyone to be harmed in our community. So I never want to wake up to a tragedy. I never want to wake up to someone that we haven't served well. So I think that surprises me. I didn't anticipate that.
We've mentioned Mayor Ballard, my former boss, a few times. You have some former Ballard executive staff members who work for you, Mr. Nick Weber and Ms. Samantha Karn. When the colonel was still mayor and people were meeting him or they're getting ready to ask him for something, every once in a while, that's more than that. Quite often I was asked, what should I say? What should I avoid saying? I want to have a good discussion with the mayor. I want to make a good impression. I had the same answer every time. Compliment his staff. He's putty in your hands.
I love that. I am so proud of the talent we have here, both existing and new. It's just, I watch these guys work and I'm just in awe. They care about our community. They have my back. They have our community's back. But it's just so fun to see them both technically expert at what they do, but also just be such great people serving our community. So I'm really proud of every single person that puts on a uniform or a badge or drives on a branded car. It's just the best thing ever. Being mayor is the best job ever. It really is. And so if everyone who wants to walk through the door wants to compliment my staff, it'll make my day too.
We have a few more minutes with the mayor of Carmel, Sue Finkam. We were discussing before the recording began. You were born in Michigan, came here more than 2 decades ago.
Yep.
What's the difference between an Indiana winter and a upper Michigan, not Upper Peninsula, but upper Michigan winter? One of my favorite Barack Obama quotes, obviously I'd have to say there aren't too many, but I have a few. And one of them was some big snowstorm in D.C. right after he became president, and they shut everything down on 8 inches of snow. And he's like, "From Chicago." Like, he really punked them out. Like, where's the toughness here? The upper part of Michigan, I can imagine, is challenging.
We had a lot of snow. And we were above a line where there was all hardwoods and pine trees, right? So there's really very few farms or anything. It was all tourism. I grew up 2 houses off of a river. My best friend had a boat on a lake that's one of the most pure lakes in the country, Higgins Lake. I had another friend with horses, another friend with motorbikes, friends with snowmobiles. It was all outdoor, outside all the time. And such a difference because we just don't embrace the outdoors like that here. Very small towns up there, so much different. This community, my mom was just here this weekend, and she's, there's just so much going on all the time. There is. It's by design, Mom. It's by design. So very different lifestyles. I was trying to get my nephew down here. He drives for UPS, and he doesn't have a full-time route. And I'm like, get him down here, Mom. He can stay with us. She's like, he's an up north boy. He's never going to come down here.
Is it a different mentality?
It is a different mentality. You have your snow boots and your snow shoes and all that kind of stuff in your trunk all the time in the winter, just in case you get a good one. And you just know that you're going to have your baseball or softball bat in the trunk. There's softball leagues in the summer, and just it's a different mentality for sure.
How would you describe and how have you embraced the Hoosier mentality?
I think above all, I don't know who coined the Hoosier hospitality tagline or tourism campaign, but that to me is the one that resonates all the time. For me to come into Indiana, and when I came in, it really was several years before I landed roots. I did some consulting around different states for a while. And in 2004, I came back to Indianapolis to I was living here, but like really spend time here working. And that's when I started to look around. Who's run the show? Why aren't we paying local governments and schools? And what is this going on? Like, who are Democrats and Republicans here? Like, just trying to figure out what was going on. And just to be embraced by people saying, learn more. Here's who this is. Come and volunteer. I'll coach you. From the business perspective, from a business development perspective, people are like, come on over. I'll take you to coffee. Just amazing. And that's what I hope we never lose here in Carmel. Is we get all these people in from all these different countries and states, is that we still have that Carmel is incredibly nice and kind and helpful and welcoming and embraces the Hoosier hospitality mentality, in addition to what we like to think is that we're elevating communities everywhere because of what we do and how we do it.
Is that part of your drive to pledge to keep Carmel
special? That's what I said during my campaign, keep Carmel special. We put it on a t-shirt. Wasn't really a campaign theme. I think above all else, people are emotionally connected to this community. There's very few people who come here and just like in 1 year, out 6 months, and don't feel like they love Carmel. I'm sure there are a few, right? But people come here and they love it. And I want to make sure that people are really emotionally connected here to whether they come for the Chris Kittle Market, where they come for our 4th of July celebration, where they visit one of our shops. Like I just went to a couple shops out in the village of West Clay, Zing Cafe and Yarn Market. Those female owners are fantastic people who each in their own way have created these small communities, both helping with mental health issues in our community because people feel connected and they know people, they feel embraced and welcome, that they belong. If they can do that in a small micro business level, they're helping us build a community that's, again, unforgettable. And that's what I love here.
You mentioned a few minutes ago, and I didn't follow up then, and I should have, but your answer here just prompted me to bring it back up. Women in politics, female mayor. Are there women issues that you think, hey, I bring a different perspective than my previous mayor, or if any of my opponents had one in either the primary or the general? I'm not asking if there are women issues in Carmel, but the perspective of being a woman who has been involved in this community for so long. Is there, in your view, a specialness about how you see things, given the fact that you're a woman in public office?
There are definitely perceptions on both sides of this conversation. There's perception that a woman mayor is going to be more caring, more empathetic. I don't think that's fair for all the males that have come before me or that serve around me. Mm-hmm. I think there's also a perception that women will be less qualified or perhaps less aggressive. I don't think those are fair for all the women who served before me either. So I've worked, good or bad, I've worked in male-dominated careers my entire life. I worked in manufacturing for many years. My undergrad was sports medicine. So I was in locker rooms. I found women or men to be fabulous mentors to me my entire career. And I've also found women to sometimes feel like they are not heard or participating in conversations. So I try to keep all of that in mind as a mayor. So I know I'm not really answering your question directly. I think I've seen a little bit of everything. I just try to put those maybe biases on both sides in my rearview mirror and just look forward. And like whatever people think, whatever happen, I want them to judge me on what I'm doing now, not what their perceptions or biases may be. Is that a fair question or answer to your question?
It absolutely is, because you mentioned a few minutes ago about people coming here and it's not a one-off. Every time I ride my bike from Fountain Square or whatever, and I come up to Carmel and I sit at Bub's and have butter pecan ice cream or whatever they have that day, I have to admit, I sit there and go, why the hell don't I live here? What am I doing? I could live here if I wanted to. Why am I not here? And it's loyalty to Indianapolis. It's proximity, spending time with my son. Maybe one day I'll come up here. But you all have built collectively a beautiful living space. We've reached the point in the Leaders and Legends podcast where we ask the same 5 questions of all of our guests. Mayor Sue Finkam, are you ready?
Ready. Let's go.
What was your first job?
Waitress. Hated it. Hated every second of it. So I very much appreciate waiters and waitresses, servers, whatever you want to lump them into, but I just didn't like it. Didn't like it.
What'd you serve?
It was a small little kind of family style restaurant, so a little bit of everything. I did learn to make a mean hamburger using Thousand Island sauce at the time, which was new to me at 14 or whatever. And then we didn't eat out like we do now either. Yeah. I loved interacting with the customers. I just didn't like being under the clock to make sure I got everything done in one time.
What was your first concert?
It was Jefferson Starship at Central Michigan University. My mom took me down there 70 miles away. I think I was a junior in high school, maybe a senior. So that was great. It was great. I was like,
we built this city?
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're about the same age.
Yeah,
so I think
I'm just a little older than you. When you're saying your age earlier, I'm just a touch older than you.
If you could suggest any book for someone to read, other than perhaps the one you mentioned earlier in the podcast, or that one, which book would you recommend?
Okay, we talked about Relentless, which is huge for me. I think The Road Less Stupid, written by a CEO, is fantastic. He sounds everybody's grandpa as he's reading it to you, again, on audible.com. That is a lot of short chapters, a lot of life lessons and leading people and leading organizations, and I just really enjoy it. So I would say that one. There's a ton. I get motivated by books, but that's one of the top of my list.
Number 4, if you could witness any event in history, be there in person as it happens, which event would you choose?
That is so hard. I feel like maybe, again, I probably could answer this for 20 different ways, but I think to be in person when the wall came down in Berlin would be incredible, just because it was cataclysmic, world-changing, and there's not many things you can truly say are world-changing. I think that would be one of them. Magnificent answer.
You have a resident of Carmel who has a piece of that wall.
Who's that?
His name is Gary Geipel.
Is that right?
Do you know Gary?
I do not.
I will introduce you to him. He is a fabulous scholar. I was his research assistant at the Hudson Institute 30 some years ago. And he is scholar of German history, German politics, fabulous. But he had a piece of it in his office, and I used to just stare at it. Like, get it out of its cage. I want to touch it. I want to see it.
Did you ever go to the museum when it was in D.C.? I love that museum. That was my favorite. And it had a big chunk of the wall there. And it was the same thing. You also just want to touch it and just like what these walls could tell you, that these pieces of wall could tell you.
Didn't they also have the door? I thought the museum had the door that the Watergate burglars taped.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see that when I was there. That was a great museum. I'm sad that was gone.
Agreed. Last question. If you could have dinner with anyone living today, not Mark Warner, because he's been too many people's answers. He's just disqualified. If you could have dinner with anyone living today, 2 hours off the record just to chat, whom would you choose?
Condoleezza Rice. I've heard her speak 3 different times. Anyone who is supervised an employee in every single time zone in the world is incredible. And her outlook, she's so smart. Her experience is incredible. I would love to have dinner with her.
I did the PR for the Luger celebration. Did you go down there and hear her speak?
No, it killed me because I was on a plane back from France.
She was terrific.
Our friend Nick Weber was trying to get me there, and I couldn't get there. I was literally not in town. Just a little piece of my heart died that day, but I couldn't be there.
You have been listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise, and sponsored by Carmel Construction, Leaders and Legends LLC, the Grand Hall and Conference Center at Historic Union Station, and the McGinley's Golden Ace Inn. As always, all our podcast interviews are dedicated to the legacy and generosity of P.E. McAllister. Our guest today, Sue Finkam, the mayor of Carmel, girl boss. Is that a fair description?
Hashtag girl boss. Yeah, I'll take it.
Who also, by the way, is one of the kindest, most genuine people I've ever met, with a wonderful sense of humor. Carmel and Indiana are incredibly lucky to have her in leadership. Mayor Finkam, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. It's been an honor. Really appreciate you.
Thank you very much for listening to Leaders and Legends, brought to you by Veteran Strategies Incorporated. If you want to contact us about this program or our menu of public relations services, please send us an email at robert@veteranstrategies.com. That's robert@veteranstrategies.com.